And here we go with another edition of the Fantastic Life is People, number 41. Tonight we're not gonna be too long a one. We're gonna sort of like try to delve into the whole kind of subject of what this podcast is titled. Really, Slay Positive, and I know it's something that if you follow my tweet or you follow Ryan's tweet or the Demons tweet or this people etc., you'll see this sort of hashtag used a lot. Now, it's something that we kind of came up with about a year ago, and I kind of wanted to sort of talk about it because Ryan had a great idea before we went live, calling it the art of creating with empathy, and I think it's something that we talk about a lot. Sort of touched on this podcast, and well, we can sort of like deal with the whole thing really because it's sort of like we've got a lot to talk about. Really, there's the creating of art, and there's the empathy, and there's slaying positive. So,
And then the other title that I had come up with, the art of giving a fuck without actually giving a fuck, which is
oh,
it's the same thing as caring, but it doesn't have that force to it, Not grabbing signs and holding up, placards with little slogans on them and banners and stuff like that. Like, you don't need to wave a lot of banners to care and be empathetic. And in actuality, the less banners you wave, the more empathetic you're going to be. So
well, I think maybe a good point to start was maybe we should sort of like try to sort of like narrow it down to what we actually think empathy means, because it's one of those words it's used not a lot, but when it is used, I think people have kind of wide perceptions of what that word actually means. So to me, empathy means, I mean, a dictionary definition is to sort of have the ability to sort of see through, walk someone, what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. But I think empathy to me is more than that. I think it's more of a ability to just try to put yourself into someone else's situation, which is different from sympathy, because there's a lot of sympathy in this world. We're bombarded with sympathy for parts of the world, people around here. Sympathy is a card that's used in advertising and by governments and etc. But empathy is a different one. I think empathy is the ability to see other people's situations, even though you haven't been there yourself, because obviously none of us are going to go through situations that other people have gone through. So that's just my rough definition of empathy. I mean, if any of you two have got anything to add on that, please just feel free, and we can start from there.
for me, one of the things I think the difference between sort of sympathy and empathy is, when a disaster happens and governments want to, they're raising funds, they're raising this, they're raising. I mean, but when they talk about donating and giving money, and then that's kind of like, really what you don't need is money in a situation like that. You need people. You need uh, you need people to help you rebuild, help you clean, help to save other people. You can't just a helicopter just can't fly over places where a tsunami hit or an earthquake hit and just start dropping buckets of money. That really isn't going to help in that sort of situation. But if you can, so I think to me it's one of those things where you don't have to. Or the sort of difference is sympathy would be sort of like giving the money and just sort of going and thinking about it, where empathy would be trying to do the most you can as a human being. And if you're close enough to that area, that means uh, picking up your shit and going to where that disaster site is and trying to help, and not even going in and start telling people what to do, but rather just going in and asking, what can I do?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, how you doing, by the way, Rich? Well, we sort of seen you there. How you doing, Rich? He can't hear us. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, because I think one of the things that is imperative for the the world we live in, and definitely for the future. I mean, me and you, Ryan, we talk about it a lot. We were talking about it this week about how we're going to be viewed by the future generations. You know what I mean? And I think as much as we look back at it now, and we quite rightly, I think, point to the fact that we will be seen as barbarians. And we were talking the other night about how just our general policy as it is right now with this pill addiction, we're putting people onto medication and stuff. These are examples of being barbaric. But as much as it can be, that's why I think it's important that we put the two together, because slaying positive is like, well, nothing is set in nothing is set in stone. You know, the future is unwritten. I mean, the Demons wrote that in a song, and the future is unwritten, and we can change the future. You know, we can, and then I think the way we're going to change the future is being a bit more empathetic and kind of having that, as you would quite rightly say, Ryan, is that humanistic idea about what we are as people on this rock spinning through space. And it's a tide that's hard to. We're fighting a tide. I mean, I wouldn't deny that. When, like I say, we live in a world where I would argue there's very little empathy, just a little bit more sympathy, and you know, and just you could argue just plain hatred towards people in general. You know what I mean? But I think the hashtag slaying positive or slay positive means basically all you can affect in your life is yourself. You know what I mean? You hear people talking about grand ideas about changing the world and, you know, doing this and doing that and doing everything else. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, all we can do is change ourselves. And that starts from the ability to be positive, which is a very difficult mindset in the world we live in right now.
Oh yeah, and you can easily like look at somebody who, if I'm happy and somebody sees me and I'm always laughing and I'm always smiling and I'm always happy, why is he like that? Why is he doing that? And it's because I'm not just concentrating on myself. My problems are my problems just as much as anybody else's problems are their problems. I don't need to put just because I am in this body in this vessel doesn't mean that I have to put this body in this vessel first and foremost. I mean, it is, the mind and the body. The body is the just the carrying case for the brain. And what is the brain? It's just some sort of juicy mash of fatty tissues and neurons. And it's I don't know. It kind of it's just it's a weird thing, but I think a lot of people are waking up to it and sort of realizing that you really will find more peace in yourself if you try living for other people and not just your own wants and needs and desires, because it is what we've talked about before, feeding the whole. You're gonna go skydiving, and the next thing you know, you're gonna want to go scuba, you're gonna want to go jet skiing, you just want a thrill. You're just looking for thrill seeking, and it's something that really doesn't end. Whereas you're just not getting that much fulfillment out of it. But as far as just trying to help anybody in any sort of way actually is so much more of a personal fulfillment for me anyway, um, rather than just some sort of one time. You can go skydiving and then you can try to remember the skydiving and how it felt, and you were just sort of falling towards earth and uh, what have you. But then you can actually think about somebody else and try to get into the shoes of somebody else and think how they think and try to understand how they came to think that way and why they live the way they do. Just sort of how to help people. And it's I don't know. It seems to me just a lot more fulfilling than any sort of dropping buckets of money on people or what have you. One of the things when Sean Penn, did you see him when what was it, the whole New Orleans thing happened?
No, no, no.
Sean Penn went down there and he basically, I think he had a really small like boat, and he just went down there. And to hear him tell the story is actually really great. But he was saying how basically he went down there with this idea of like, if I can help, I'll do what I can, but I'm really don't want to get in anybody's way. And then he said once he got down there, he couldn't find anybody to get in the way of. He said nobody was down there. Nobody was really doing anything. And literally he was in his boat pulling people out of water. Like, it doesn't take an actor to do that. It doesn't take somebody famous to do that. He didn't do that because he was famous or because he was an actor. Just empathy and people seeing other people in need, and we're all in need of something, and acting upon that and doing it.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things I was kind of talking to Rich about, because obviously he's just come back from LA, And LA is a very good example to me. It's the polar opposite of what this podcast is called. I mean, that's a place where they create stuff, which is a bit very loose term for creating in Hollywood. But there's no, I mean, from my impression of outside of it, it seems very little positivity and empathy going on in Hollywood. Now, I mean, I was going to ask Rich. I mean, you just come back from LA, Rich. I mean, what was your feel of the place? I mean, you've been down there.
Oh wow. Well, I was in West Hollywood is where I stayed, which probably isn't like. I'm sure as you go from one area of town to the next, it's quite a bit different. You know, I was in West Hollywood, which tends to be more the epicenter of the club life and it's a very gay part of Los Angeles, and you know it's everybody, like I was saying before, everybody's wearing their gym clothes, and not everybody, but a good percentage of them. It's a very aware, health conscious sort of area of town. And my impression, I was driving down towards Sunset Boulevard towards the ocean, and as I was driving down from West Hollywood area, you go through Beverly Hills, and then you pass by UCLA, and then it hits you. It's like, wow, this area between Sunset Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard, from like Fairfax to the ocean, is how much wealth is tied up in that little area. It's incredible. It's so rich. I mean, that's the 90210 area. It's the Beverly Hills. It's so much wealth tied up in that. And I don't necessarily think the people that are extremely wealthy are ignorant of the plight of most people. I think some people there, yeah, sure, there's always self-centered people everywhere. But I do think that some of them, like you're talking about Sean Penn, they're looking for ways to help in a meaningful way. And throwing their wealth in one direction or the other may have some effect, but it may not. And so they're always looking for ways to raise the societal consciousness, some of them, And I don't know who these people are. I didn't meet any of the billionaires. My wife might have. I think she went to the gala event of the Beverly Hills Film Festival, and I think there was a Chinese man there. She said that he had put out there that he was looking for a place to put $16 billion of investment into like indie filmmaking and the like. 16 billion, not million. And I'm like, where the hell does that money come from? And somebody reminded me, it's like, well, when you go to Walmart, where do you think that money's going to? It's like everything's made in China. He might have been a recipient of that. I don't know. But it's just incredible. There is so much money out there, and at the same time, there's that middle class is dwindling in America. It's like, yeah, getting harder and harder for a middle class to exist. You're either like scraping by or you have more than you know what to do with, it seems like. Some people argue that, but I think the only middle class really left is going to be those employed by the federal government. It's like that'll basically be it. And otherwise, it's the System D. It's the underground system. It's the people who have to operate outside of the normal system in order to survive, really. And that system is probably going to grow faster, because basically that's what happens. People, they get pushed out of their comfortable lifestyle, and then they have to start making ends meet any way they can. And how do you? Yeah, it gets complicated. And but System D, that's something that's worth talking about and trying to understand and wrap our head around. And I think all it means is it's that system that isn't representative in government statistics, really. It's those people who are making their money, getting by without traditional, maybe they are paying taxes, maybe they're not, probably not. System D isn't tied to that. It's tied to simply humans getting by the way that humans always have, hand to mouth sometimes, and in some cases very well. System D doesn't mean you're barely surviving. It just means you're surviving outside of the system as we know it. And anyway, but as far as my impression of Los Angeles, I didn't get around that much. I spent most of my time in West Hollywood area, and I liked it. I'd like to go back there and stay there for a month. I enjoyed it. It did seem, I didn't talk to enough people to get a real feel for the vibe of the area. And a lot of people are transient there. I like how one person put it. A lot of people come to LA to try to grasp at their dream, right, of being an actor, a producer, a screenwriter, and there's so much talent tied up in that area. And most of those people, they're working odd jobs to get by. And it seems like everywhere you go in LA, you go into a store, and I went into a bookstore, and the lady at the counter just had an interesting personality. So I asked her, yeah, so, are you an actor? Do you write screenplays, what? And she says, no, I'm a comedian, and she gave me her card, and she does the comedy store. And then I had to swing into Hustler just for fun. So, because Hustler has something right now. And so I go into Hustler, and I'm looking for something for my wife, and she's not into that stuff at all anyway. But I figured out maybe there's something here that I could sneak into our life. But no, that didn't happen. But I told the guy. What did I ask him? Well, he had a look to him. He looked like he was an actor. So I asked him about, hey, do you do any acting? And as a matter of fact, he was an actor, and he was doing like little bits here and there. And it's kind of funny. It's like Hollywood is a place where people go still to try and live that dream of being an actor. And you would think that all that stuff would be sort of falling to the wayside, but that industry still is. That's the epicenter still, and you have so much going on there. And to me, it's exciting. It's like some people say there's that energy of people grabbing at their dreams and pushing for their dreams, and then there's also the other side of it where the people reach that age when they're like, hey, it's obviously I'm not going to be who I thought I was, and here I am, just getting by now. But still, to me, that's still an important place to be. You know what I mean? It's like when you're around creative energy, you're around people that want to do something, get something done. There's something to that, and I felt that when I was there, and that was kind of nice. I didn't feel that looming darkness of a city about to fall into the ocean, crushed by government regulation and all that. Yeah, I'm sure that's there, and it may fall, but at the moment that day when I was there, it felt like a place where a lot of really hardworking, health-conscious, strong-minded people were existing and living and getting on with their life. So I don't really have much bad to say about my experience there. I certainly, like I said, I didn't feel that dark, looming feeling that some people talk about when they go into cities. Actually, I did pass through one city. There's a small town in Arizona called Sholo, and we were driving down Highway 60, and it's beautiful scenery, and all of a sudden I get this, I don't know, it's like a deep, like a feeling, and I said, this is really weird, huh? It's weird in here, because we were going into this small town, and it was like we both got this feeling like of, not really dread, but like that sinking feeling, like there's something not right here. And I don't know what Sholo is, but all of a sudden it was a wealthy town, and there was nothing there except I think there was I think there was some kind of military presence there or something, some kind of base, and I don't know. And maybe they were playing around with certain electrical fields or something. Maybe that's what we felt. I don't know. But yeah, so I missed your intro conversation, but you're talking about empathy and sympathy. I wasn't quite sure. What got you on that vein?
Well, the point particularly around LA, Richard, particularly Hollywood, is that it's obviously one of those places that's a very creative town and a city. It's known as that, you know what I mean? But the impression, and it's something that we've, I know I've encountered, and I'm sure you both encountered in your own lives, is that there's a lot of creative people out there, but there seems to be a lack of empathy in the creative sort of industry in general. I know I've come across it a lot, where there's a lot of people where it seems to be almost a lot of this sheep and wolves clothing stuff, where people will come along to you and they want to feed off you for a while and then they disappear. And that's what I was trying to get my head around, because it's, creating is a great thing. And I think all the people that create stuff I think if every person that creates stuff, that's great, because it means there's one less employee of the government, there's one less employee of the the police force or whatever we're talking about. So I think creating in general is a very good thing. But it's trying to marry that with empathy, because there seems to be a lot of lack of empathy, particularly like I say in Hollywood, where it's you hear so many stories about actors stabbing each other in the back and people becoming friends and then taking their roles and to me it's kind of almost become synonymous with what being a creative person is supposed to be about. You're meant to stab your way to the top, get you up to the top, and then when you're up there you do all in your power to stay up there and push everyone down that's around you. And one of the things that and I know it's something I particularly have a big passion about, but some of the bands that I was a couple of weeks ago, I went down to Leeds and I saw Rorschach, Seething Demons Fold and Terrorist, all some of them have been on this podcast. And one of the things that really struck me about it was there was nothing other than empathy between them all. There was none of this stabbing each other in the back. I said to Ryan the other night, they decided the lineup of the gig there and then on the night, and it was done in 2 minutes. And it was just that was a lineup. Now I said to Ryan the other day, I've been in a band and I've seen bands split up over less. And that's what I mean is this whole it's trying to marry the two together, being creative and being empathetic. And like I say, to your point, Rich, you were talking about you were just saying then about how you can't see LA falling into the sea anytime because of whatever. Well, I was saying to Ryan the other night, that earthquake that's hitting Nepal, man, that's at some point Arizona Bay is going to happen. That place is going to fall into the sea one way or the other. Whether it's through lack of through politics or more likely through that big earthquake, it's going to happen at one point. It was always Bill Hicks's dream, and maybe one day it's going to happen.
Yeah, one thing that's going on in LA, I guess, in respect to empathy towards other genders, is the ACLU is bringing a case against the big movie producers. I guess there are 6 of them that are the major Hollywood movie producer companies, outlets. And the issue is that right now the directors that are coming out of film schools and creating new awesome work, half of them are female. And yet when it comes to the big budget films that Hollywood produces, I think it's 1.9% of those are coming from females. And it's not because of lack of talent. It's not because the women can't produce as well or better than the men. It really does seem to be a gender-biased industry right now in as far as the Hollywood major feature-length films go. And my wife, that was bugging her. Last night she was talking about it. I guess she read some the case that's being brought against these companies by the ACLU. And that's something, and that is empathy. When you talk about other genders being excluded, and who knows what the reasoning is. We know it's not for lack of creativity and genius. It does seem to be strictly related to a gender bias, and it comes down to a handful of executives that really make decisions at the top. They really are at the helm. They decide what's going on, and maybe it's still sort of like a good old boy system at the top there. But what it comes down to is awareness. And if everybody really gets this awareness out there, there's certain producers or directors, I won't watch their films even though I know they're going to be great movies because I don't like the politics or the mindset of that producer or director. I just won't watch it. I don't care how good the movie is or how many awards it's won. And so if people really feel that strongly, they will They should boycott the industries that exclude women from an equal opportunity, and so things will change. The fact that ACLU is bringing this court case against these major film houses, I think it's going to change things, and it's a good thing. I think, and that's kind of the bottom line. I used to get kind of negative about the fact that nobody seemed to be paying attention to all of the pesticides and what the damage that it's doing to the nervous systems of insects and mammals and anything that comes in contact with it. It's screwing up in some way. And I used to be pretty negative about it, and up until recently, because now I'm seeing that so many countries around the world are actually they're banning it. They're saying no, we're not anything with glyphosate in it. And in fact, Monsanto, you're out of here. We don't want anything to do with you. And just recently, the rating for the stocks in Monsanto just dropped quite a bit. They're like not a good stock to buy into right now because they're really finally getting the backlash from their evil ways, so to speak. The way they've treated the farmers that use their crops or their seeds. The fact that don't seem to be overly concerned with the damage, environmental damage done by the chemicals they use in their pesticides. So, I'm starting to see. I guess it just comes with age, right? You live long enough, and you can start to see the tides turn and ebb and flow, and people start to, you know, form alliances in such a way that they can actually push back against these industries that seem like Goliaths. And so I think there's reason to be happy and optimistic about the future if people keep pushing the way they are against some of these hazardous things being done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Rich that kind of I kind of overview it, and it's particularly because it's around that part of the world, is that there's a lot of people, I think, and I think they're a very like you just said then. I think you hit the nail right on the head. There is a kind of general kind of wake up moment that's going on. One of the things that what kind of confuses me a little, maybe is the fact that I think a lot of people have the right intentions, but they kind of are getting it's what I'm saying. It's the right intentions with no empathy. I mean, a perfect example of it is what you would call generally the social justice warriors. These people. I mean, we've had a little counter of it. I'll give you a personal example. As you know, we did a podcast with Rachel Clare from Calm. And we had a guy who commented on the YouTube page about, just another male suicide charity. What about females? And I thought, see, you're missing the point. I can understand, he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to sort of, understand about human beings. But again, he's taken a good intention and married it to a bad thought process. And instead of becoming empathetic, it becomes attacking. And I see a lot of this, and it's starting to really creep in over here. I mean, I was just before before we started the podcast, which we had lag on. I sent Ryan a link, and it was the perfect example over here. There's an uproar over here about a street in Kent, which is down near London, and it's been called after named after a famous engineer down there, but his name was Bangay. And now that's all being, you're being homophobic, and it's just this whole thing. I mean, you obviously live in a part of the world where you're kind of a bit more advanced with this whole sort of social justice warrior stuff, and that's what I'm trying to say. I think there's a lot of good intentions, but not married with empathy. I don't know how you two feel about it, because you're kind of more in the belly of the beast with that. I mean, I'll open it up to you two about how you feel about
that. Well, do you want to go? I think empathy is something that some people say it can't be learned, but I don't necessarily agree. I think sometimes it's a matter of just taking time to step back and be observant of how what you do affects other people. But of course, like you say, empathy doesn't mean that you've had that same experience. Empathy is about looking at somebody else's experience, like even if it comes to just watching a television program where it's completely fake, there's nothing real about it, yet you empathize with, in some cases, not only the victim, but in some cases you empathize with the perpetrator, because you see that what they're doing is actually either derived from something wrong with them that they don't even understand. And so, as a culture, I wouldn't know if we're becoming more empathetic or less empathetic. It seems like we're becoming more empathetic, just like you say, because a lot of people are saying, hey, this isn't fair, or this over here happening to these people, it isn't right. And just because it's not directly affecting our lives doesn't mean we shouldn't be concerned with it. But I've met enough people that made enough sense to say, what's going on around you directly? In my town, my neighbor, what do they need? How can I help them? And that's really the most important form of empathy. Like the social justice warrior might get on a social network and start berating somebody who seemed to be in the wrong because they used the wrong vernacular, or they offended somebody with the way they said something, and that's a ridiculous sort of faux sort of empathy. And I think in some cases that it's just attention getting. They want to feel good about their points of view. But real empathy, I think, comes down to how do you treat the people around you that your lives actually directly touch. Mm. And if you see somebody that needs a hand up, they need a ride somewhere, they're short on groceries, they, you got to step up. Hey, I'm not going to let my neighbor or my friend in my town go hungry for a night if I can help it. That's the empathy that people need. And if you know, I forgot what that joke was, but it was like a friend in need is a friend to avoid or something. It's a lot of people think like that. They're like, oh, someone, they don't have a job anymore. Well, hey, shit, I'm not going to answer that phone call. They're probably going to ask for money. That to me is like, that's so sad when somebody gets to that point. And so I think maybe empathy to some degree does come from having experienced something in your life where you were in need, and even though you see somebody else who isn't going through the exact same thing you were, you can relate. You're like, okay, that person is lost right now. That person isn't sure how they're going to, get their next dollar tomorrow. What can I do to make sure that to give them a little hand up? So, but, as far as like the big issues, the ones that are outside of any one person's ability to change, um, the guilt shaming type stuff, I don't think that's necessarily based on empathy. I think some people speculate that it's based on this desire. I think on Joe Rogan's podcast, they say that that desire extends from the need to get laid, right? So you want to look like the nice guy. You're trying to you're trying to, oh yes, I'm a feminist, I'm a male feminist, and I'm a this and I'm a that. Maybe some of that's true. But yeah, I think real empathy extends from actually really living life and getting out there and seeing what people need in your area, and being nice to people even though they're mean to you. That's a really important form of empathy, I think. When somebody can come at you and be mean and hateful and not want to strike back. I think that's the most important kind, because it's the kind when you can step away and say, that person they're not in their right mind right now. They're attacking me for no reason, or they're attacking somebody else for no reason. And those are the easiest people to hate, but then in a lot of cases those are the people that need the most empathy. And I think in some cases, when you can show somebody like that empathy, you kind of are the light. You're allowing them to step back, and maybe a few moments later when they're by themselves, they'll say, "Man, I'm such an asshole. Why did I do that?" Whereas if you struck back, they would have felt justified in being the asshole they were. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
go
my
on.
gauge on empathy.
And Ryan, what's your thoughts on it?
Rich said it pretty well right there. Yeah, I would pretty much agree with Rich. The only thing I can kind of add on to it is sort of, I guess, like an apocalypse type situation scenario where, just think of the people, um, you know, if you had, I don't know, maybe 100 people in your area, or the closest people to you that live within, such miles, if you were all got, sort of stuck in this apocalypse type scenario and you only had like a certain amount of resources, how would everyone react in that scenario? Would they try to, because to me, the important thing would be to learn to know that, the more people you have, the more chance of all of you getting out alive, living longer, being able to find and create more resources. But then, when's that, would you be able to trust those people to not let their ego take over and start, well, why are we all getting equal amounts of food? I'm doing more work, I should have more food. And the jealousies of, just being in that sort of limited situation. How I don't know, I feel like everyone would sort of have this, just sort of pyramid over each other, trying to reach to the top, and uh, you know, if everyone's gonna die, they still want to be the last one to die, type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like that.
I don't. So I mean, I don't want to sound that negative, but as far as like some like hardcore empathy goes, I don't think we're to that point of. I think there's still a lot of people that want to be on top. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not surprising when you think about it. We've been, I mean, it's something we talk about a lot on this podcast. I mean, we're all conditioned. I mean, I know you know, it's not too you know, there's a lot of similarities between us and you know me and you in different parts of the world, but we're conditioned into this. You know, like we were just saying, from the media, from a general culture, from our way we're brought up in schools, just to basically the weight of history that's just come through. But this is kind of like the story that's being told by the people that at the moment are keeping us in this paradigm that we live in. I mean, the real truth about history and all of us human beings is that we've all got here, and the reason we can talk right now is because there's been empathy around. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here. We'd all be selfish. We'd all be just be looking after each other, and the world would have died out a long time ago. I mean, I think it's when you get, if you really start to go into depth, I think it's the more we're discovering about this mind mush that's inside our skulls, we're realizing that maybe we're all connected in you know, we've talked about this on that, you know, particularly that, you know, with you know, when Ben came on and we were talking, you know, we're talking about the brain and computer simulations. I think we've all got the same connections, and I think we're, you know, we are all empathetic. You know, it's just trying to define what that word empathy means rather than sympathy, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm being really empathetic and I'm being this and the other, and I send my $10 a month to help the African kids, and I send, you know, to save the tiger, and that's my little tick box of empathy. But empathy isn't like that. And you know, I think you were very correct when you said it. You know, I think you hit the nail on the head, Rich, is when you said it's about the ability to walk in someone else's shoes, and the fact of just try to open your eyes and look around the world around you and see what it's like. So instead of thinking, okay, maybe the best solution, I have an empathetic part of my soul that thinks, okay, I don't want to see human beings in Africa die. That's not, none of us would want that. But is it maybe the best solution to me to send money to an organisation that's just going to basically be funding a dictatorship that's just never going to see the people? I mean, I've kind of had the experience of living that. I saw this in Venezuela. There was a lot of this sympathy going on. I mean, it was like, oh, they need roads, just equalise everything out. And it was like they never once came and asked the people what they wanted. It was always someone from up high dictating to someone below what they felt, what they needed. And that's not empathetic to me. That's being sympathetic, or at best sympathetic. I think you know, if you're being really cynical about it or really kind of thinking about it, it's not even sympathy. It's more of a case of just them trying to fulfill their wants and needs to keep them in power. That's just my general perspective on it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's more like a guilt type thing, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Throwing a quarter
is
in the bin.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, where was I? I think I was at Whole Foods in L.A. and was going through the checkout, and you know, she's asked me, "Would you like to give $1 or $2 to Nepal?" And yeah, I was thinking, you know what? I bet Whole Foods, if you know, if any of them, probably is actually getting the money there. So yeah, I was like, okay, here's $1. Maybe it'll help. I don't know, but you know, it is important, and I don't think that's necessarily guilt, because I think all of us are at some point when we hear about big disasters, we're like, well, you know, what can I do? And it's always nice when somebody else steps up and says, hey, I'm here, over here, I'm collecting the money to give over to this organization. The problem is accountability and how much is actually getting there. And that's one of the beauties of like the Bitcoin blockchain technology is in the future, we can just say, okay, I'm sending X amount to this wallet over here that's designated for this. And if this organization wants to, they can be as transparent as they like, and that you can actually see how much they've collected into that wallet and how much, and when it goes, they can tell people, okay, we sent X amount over here and X amount to this and X amount to that. You know, naturally, I think it's fine if they take 10% for administrative purposes, but when you go much above that, it's like, dude, what are you really doing? Are you just, you know, are you really trying to help somebody, or are you just helping yourself?
I used to give to one. I don't want to name it because I don't know all the statistics on it. But you know, every time I saw like a can for it or whatever, you know, I used to throw my change in the bin, just like I'm sure many people did. And then, you know, I think you know, a few years ago, I heard something along the lines of you know, this big, huge charity that, you know, you constantly see people giving money to. You see the things everywhere. and it was something like only 10 cents on the dollar was actually
Yeah.
being used to help the people that it said it was going to help. All the rest of it was being used in buying equipment, renting office spaces, all sorts of other things that weren't actually benefiting the people that it was supposed to be. And I mean, so you guys you donate that money to Nepal, but then at the same time, it's like, well, how's that money getting to Nepal? All these other people are getting paid to ask for it, and I still give the things like that. I probably would have given $1 to the Nepal thing too, but then at the same time, to send that money, the currency exchange, the dollar is actually ending up over there. But like we all still give, we all still feel, maybe we still have that hope and glimmer of I hope it gets there. I hope it can do something. When they say $5 can help you buy a meal for a week, you're like, man, I really hope it can. Like,
Well, one of they do is for feed my starving children, and it's a ridiculous amount of the the money they collect goes to the actual children that are literally starving at that moment. And I'm not sure how their outreach spreads. I've seen there's a lady in town who has a small store, and everything it's all about collecting money as much as she can gather for Feed My Starving Children. And that seems like a really awesome one because that's hitting somebody it's hitting people that need that sustenance immediately, and they already have the grains, and they get the right meals, the right protein, and they're extremely cheap. It's like literally 20 cents a day per meal, and it's enough to allow these starving kids to, you know, stay alive again. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, it's a bit broken up, Rich. But
yeah, it's kind of,
Let's see here.
one of the kind of the things that's tapping into what you just said then, Rich, is it's kind of, I think, again, this is all with knowledge, and this is, we've all got the ability to right now, because the world we live in, we can all connect and go onto, onto the internet and research your stuff. But I think it's one of the things that like I said before, people sort of feel that by chucking, $1 or a pound into a charity box, and they tick that list. But when you sort of understand that a lot of the problems in this world and the reason there are starving kids and a lot of reasons there are people going through absolute brutal situations, which I don't even, you can't underestimate and underscale of what these people are going through. But a lot of that is down to this whole system of this, like, well, money's the solution. If you know what I mean? And when you realise that people in those parts of the world, like we've said before, we live on a rock that's got enough food, enough space for all of us. And the reason a lot of I would say 9/10 of the problems in this world are caused right now is caused by dodgy politics, by dictators, by people just being greedy, and it's I think half of the wake up moment is understanding who these people are, and then instead of being sympathetic towards these people and feeding, as Ryan would say, feeding that hole, we go like you just saying then, Rich. We find alternative ways to directly communicate with people and cut the middleman out. Because there's no reason for any human being. I mean, Bill Hicks said it years and years ago, man. There's, with all the money that we spend on nuclear weapons and arms, and we could feed everybody on this planet, and we could explore space. And that's the wake up moment people need to do. Because all the time that you're propping up a system, whatever it is, we're not going to move forward. And I think you're right, Rich. I think that the things that are coming right now, and we talk about it, not only like you're saying, Bitcoin and the D system, but just things like we talk about MadeSafe and stuff like that. Just these little steps are just going to make us connect more. Because I think the big thing to me about empathy is connection and understanding and connecting with people and realizing, oh, actually you are just a human being, whether you're whoever you are in this world. And that's one of the things that we try to stand and fight this, we stand on this podcast and try to do. We talk to anybody and everybody and try to connect with them. And I think, it's like you just said then, I think one of the things that we can all get frustrated about the system around us, and it can drive us to depression. But the reason, we use, I mean, like I said, we use that hashtag stay positive is because you've got to stay positive in your own life. And that's very difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, all of us are immune to, especially creative people, we're immune to big, slides into depression at times and stuff like that because we are creative. But it's hard. I mean, I think it's the hardest battle is trying to stay positive yourself, and we've all been there. And I don't mean that whole idea of just like, hey, isn't life grand? Let's all pat ourselves on the back and say, isn't life great? And put a big happy smile on. That's not being positive at all. Positive is trying to be sticking to your guns. We're going to have an interesting guest on. He's coming on next Tuesday, and I'm really excited to speaking to him. And I told you both about him, called Robert Kelsey, and he wrote the book The Outside Edge, and I'd recommend everyone go out and read this because it's exactly kind of another angle of what we're talking about. It's the idea that us who we are, particularly because we're us real creative people, we are generally the outsiders in the world, and it's our understanding of trying to not let that sink you down because we've all been there before. And I think the ability to stay positive in yourself is crucial because it's if we're not positive, then we're gonna crumble, and we're just gonna be another statistic on the line. And I mean, one of the things my not advice or tips or anything, I think the thing about staying positive is just understanding. I try to do every day. It's just whenever I wake up in the morning, I just think, wow, this is another day I've got on this ride that we call life, and try to take the most out of it and go with all your emotions. So if you're feeling down, don't knock yourself for feeling down, but try to engage your mind into what it is. Go out for a run, take your bike out. We talked about this, mindfulness, anything that's going to keep you positive. And I think you can only start from yourself, and if you can generate that light inside yourself, that positivity in yourself, it can have great effects. I mean, I don't know how you two feel about that, and please feel free to
That's what slay positive is to me. It's it's a work positive, through whatever. It's spin the demons into a different direction. You don't have to let them bring you down. You can use them to bring you up too. You can creative. If you're upset, use that to put that into your creative efforts. In any sort of fashion, in any sort of way, even if it's not, if you're working on a script and you have an idea for a song, but you don't write songs, like, write the damn song, that's, it's, it's, to me, look, I think I've talked about just stacking up your work, when, when Rod Serling got, the offer to do the Twilight Zone, he had I think it was like 91 episodes already written. He wrote 91 episodes of Twilight Zone before he even had the show. So and as much as that man smoked cigarettes, one after another, he had, a fair amount of demons to be able to write 91 episodes of a TV show that he doesn't even know is like ever going to get picked up or anything. And sure enough, it did, and he ended up writing a hell of a lot more than 91 episodes, and ended up having another series after that, and that's just not letting it bring you down, slaying positive, just killing it in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ryan, what you just said then is exactly it. It's one of the things that I've always tried to do is that, like you said, I know you're exactly the same as me, and I know that demons and fold and terraces, exactly the same. It's that idea of try to do something every day, and that goes back to what I just said then, because I mean, it's one of the things that we talk about a lot, but I don't think many people really got their heads around it. We are all just mortal beings, and we never know when our lives are going to end. And it's such a cheap cliche that people go, "Oh yeah, live every day like it's your last." But
and then they jump out of a plane, like skydiving, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, I've lived, man. I went skydiving. Like,
yeah,
all right, like, isn't it?
But the more of the essence of that living every day is, I mean, I can talk from personal experience. I mean, you never know when you're going to have the car slams into the side of you and your life's just gone. This is the thing. I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's so true because none of us know the fragile of our life. And that's why whenever, like I say, when I wake up in the morning or wake up whenever, I go, okay, what am I going to produce today? And at times it's very difficult. And I know that being creative people, it's one of the hardest things, like you just said there, Ryan. And like the guy who wrote the Twilight Zone. It can feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall because you're just constantly producing. You're not getting any positive feedback for it, let alone money for it, let alone success in the sort of terms of what success is. But it's doing that. It's that thing what we talked about with Rachel when she came on. It's that mindfulness of just digging a hole, doing something. Because if you can do that, then that's how you generate the positivity. Because negativity is when you don't do that, and instead of waking up and going, okay, you don't wake up and you don't open the windows, and that leads to more depression. Before you know it, you slid away, and that's another life gone. And that's to me is the element of being positive. It's not being happy all the time, but it's just trying to make the best of the circumstances you've got. And I think one of the things that's why it's to me always inspiring is when I know people who personally I know people who've come from God knows horrendous situations. I mean, I know a kid who one of my close friends, and he's from Congo, and he saw his parents just murdered in front of him when he was a 7-year-old lad, and then had to sort of get on a boat and travel across Africa and all this horrific stuff. And it's like every time I sort of feel myself, I feel like, oh, maybe I'm not getting as many positive feedback as I want. I just think, well, yeah, but at least I'm not in that situation, and that's what keeps me positive. It's that balance of understanding where people are in lives. And I mean, it's one of the things that I found really sort of tough through the last sort of like 5 weeks of this whole fake election that we've gone through over here, was just the unbelievable amount of snarly people putting on a smile and going, oh, look at me, I care for everybody else. And it's like, but you don't, because you still want to put a border in this country. You still think people outside there are the outsiders. They're the other. And that's not being empathetic, and that's not saying positive. Saying positive is understanding that we're all just on this rock. And just because someone's, like, I mean, it's one of the things that, I mean, over here, it's always about, Eastern Europeans. Over your part of the world, it's those goddamn Mexicans coming over our country and flooding our country and taking all our jobs. But man, they're people. They're just all they are. And it's that trying to get over that narrative of what we're faced with every day. And we can't defeat, I can't get onto Fox News and have my side of the story, but I can change my life. I can change how I affect other people, and that's what I think is most important, because we can all change our own perspectives. And that's one of the things that why I use that that hashtag Slay Positive, because you can only affect what you can only affect in your life. And I think some people get really lost on the whole idea of trying to save the world, and they get lost in it, and before you know it, they become part of the problem, not part of the solution. I don't know how you two feel about that. Please, expound and allude to what you think.
Well, when I came back from LA, I was really interested. For some reason, once I went back, I wake up,
You're
the sun
cutting out,
comes
Rich.
too much. I probably just have too slow of a connection. I may actually have to tap out here if you all can't hear. I can barely. I don't know. It seems like you all keep locking up on me. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay.
No. It's like it starts off like normal, and then all of a sudden it cuts out, and it sounds like you have like a really tiny voice.
Yeah, you're like a little man in a little box.
Oh man, I have some job to do. So I'm gonna tap out and head out. And it was really cool hanging out with you guys for 20 minutes or whatever it was.
Okay, I got kind of part of that, Rich, but I kind of understand you're going to sort of tap out. I kind of I heard the word tap out.
I'll show you now. Can you see that?
Oh man, yeah, just mate, you can disappear. Just leave your camera on that, and we'll just stare at that for a while.
This is so. Y'all take care. We'll do maybe Tuesday. I'll try to meet you.
Cool, man. I'll speak to you Tuesday.
Have a good one, Rich.
Oh, yeah, that was he sounded like you said that you had a perfect description. He sounded like a tiny little man in a massive big box, you know. But no, man, it's one of the things. I mean, I know particularly me and you talk about it a lot, but I mean, I like I said, but you know, I think me and you particularly. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to do this podcast on this subject. Is it's something that me and you talk about a lot, and I don't find it as so frustrating. I don't find the system frustrating as much as I do find other creative people who have a lack of empathy. That's what I find really hard. I don't mind governments and corporations being like that because that's how they are. But when you see other creative people being showing no empathy, it really, really frustrates me. That's why I'll always fly the flag for people like Bold, Demon, terrorist, you know, broken opium table. I could go on amount of people, you know, the guys down in Historic, down in Dayton and stuff, because there's this general empathy there, you know, and I find it really difficult. And I think it's one of the things that's not spoken about a lot is this is people think that, oh, all creative people, we're all in this together and it's like one big happy hippie family. When the truth and the reality is it's not like that at all. Some of the most psychopathic people can be in the creative industry. And I know it's something that me and you have found, you know, through our times being creative, and even recently, you know, there's people that you think are one thing and they turn out to be another thing, and you're like, how did I not see that? You know, how did I not recognize that? But that's part of the lessons of life. You know, you can get to my age, you can get to your age, and you know, it's all about learning life lessons. And you know, and I don't know what it is in these people. I find it really hard. I find it really difficult to understand if you're creative how you can be like that. But I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know. I think maybe it's talking about these things. I don't know. I mean, please. I mean, Ryan. I mean, come on. You've got a great mind. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I like pizza. Uh, um, no, like, well, the thing with like politics and all that is, it seems like after a while, we're not getting into empathy, and we're not thinking about people, and we're not thinking about ourselves as a whole and ourselves as being just as important as the next person. We're really just kind of feeding a system, a non-existent, non-tangible uh, thing that we as humans sort of subconscious force. And that's why, I've said it before about just turning away from it and sort of being like, it's not my bag. It's, they can do what they want. I'll do what I want. And, if we ever meet up, obviously I know that that's, on me. But at the same time, there aren't that many differences. I just don't feel the need to force things on people. Even, we've had certain people on this podcast, won't bring it obviously, but, me and you have talked about some sort of different people, where just like you said earlier, we try to communicate with people. We try to interact with people. We try to, it's not just about, sort of hooking up and making connections and doing projects together. If you want to, go for it. If something happens from that, go ahead and do it. But it's not like you know, anybody here, me and you don't want to make money off of these people. Um, Likewise, I'm sure they don't want to make money off of us. But, you can tell when, we're trying to connect with people. And I'm speaking about me and you. Me and you can tell when we're trying to connect with people and when they're obviously, not trying to connect with us.
Yeah, that's
Sort of playing it up for the moment, and then they just kind of disappear from us. And which is, it's sad, obviously, because that's, we're not here to dick around people, play games with people, say we're going to do things. I think me and you have come through, 110% and done things, sometimes that we weren't even asked to do. The mind map, to do a mind map, you draw the, pictures of everybody, and I see, so many people change their avatar to their mind map picture. Mine on Twitter with the cowboy hat for, I don't know, such a long time, and I don't feel like changing it ever, because I'm just like, yeah, that's such a dope picture. And but that is sort of that empathetic thing where, what are your motives? What are you trying to do? Um, if it's all just about you, then, you won't give that extra 110%. You won't, step out of your comfort zone,
Yeah, I
which I
mean
think a
that.
lot of creatively, I think a lot of people, especially like the mainstream and stuff like that, I think they have problems being empathetic towards, uh, and I use that term loosely, obviously now, but artistically, a lot of them don't want to step outside their box, and they want to go based off what songs their fans like.
Yeah, I mean
So if they make one big hit, they try to recreate it and so on.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I will never tire ever of bigging up. Like I said before, the Seeding Demons. I'll big up the Fold. I'll big up bands like this because, and as I say, when I went to that gig, I saw it. I saw it there just in live in the moment. There was this empathy. Not it was it was just empathy. There was this whole new wave, and I said before. I mean, I mean, I'm a bit kind of a generation above them, but I kind of came up in the same music industry in the same city, and I saw so many bands split, argue, egos came in the way, and I'm sure it's the same all around the world, and that's why I will always big up this whole, not just one band, but a lot of bands, because if you don't support these people and big up that, then what can we do? And that's why I'll always put these people up because to me, it is something new. It's something I've never witnessed before. I mean, I've witnessed scenes come and go in this country before. I've seen, hip hop right, the trip hop thing rise, and I've seen other scenes rise in this country. But I've never seen anything that's going on at the moment where it seems to be, like I said, there's absolutely no ego, absolutely no sense of trying to stab each other in the back. It's just a bunch of people trying to support each other and make the best of what they can. And I think a lot of this comes from, and I think this is one of the crucial differences between, I think, the mainstream as it is right now and people like, as I mentioned before, the Seeding Demons, the Fold, Terrorist, I could go on and on, Raw Shack, there's so many of them. But I think the difference is that some of these, the bands I just mentioned then have actually had close friends commit suicide. And I think that's a really big thing when it makes you sort of wake up a very early point of like, well, okay, I'm in a band, I'm doing this, and what am I really doing it for? And when you understand that and get your head around that, and you've been unfortunately through that experience, it changes your life perspective. And what upsets me is I don't, it shouldn't be the point in life where the only point, the only point when you get to that realization and you become more kind of, as I said, I would say slaying positive, or is when you've had a loss, because that's not the way it should be. People should get to that moment before, unfortunately, having someone that they've lost. That, and that's what I want to wake up people to. That's why I stand and do this podcast. That's why we do what we do, because it's trying to get to people to the realization that don't wait till the moment's gone. Do it now. Be positive now. Don't wait till someone that shit moment happens in your life. Be positive now. Try to, like you said, try to go out. I mean, you just mentioned then, Ryan. I mean, I've always done this, and I know you're exactly the same. I don't do anything for myself, for my ego. Do you know what I mean? I do it because it's kind of like it's what I do. And I don't do it for any other reason. I'm not trying to court favors. I'm not trying to get myself up the ladder or anything like that. It's just because it's kind of like I said before, life is too short. And I think that's the essence of slaying positive. And that's why I use it a lot, because it's people. I mean, I've had people come to me on Twitter and say, "Oh, that's a really negative thing to say. What, you want to go around killing people?" I'm like, what part of slay positive are you missing? You just seen the word slay and think I'm some sort of going out there to kill people. This is what I'm trying to say. It's slaying positive is a mindset, and it's a mindset of being empathetic towards other people. And it, like I say, I don't want I don't want that mindset to only come from when people have lost a situation or they've had a difficult situation. It's trying to push that through in a way of like saying to people, you know what, you can all get there in a moment. We talked about it particularly with Rachel when she was on, and it's that mind, and it is important because that's what I was saying. Even today, another 12 blokes have just, by average, have gone out and topped themselves. And I've gone through it recently, and that's why it's so focused in my life. And I think people that don't want to hide, kind of hide away from the realities of what's going on, they're the people that I think are part of the problem. I think the people think, oh, well, like we just mentioned earlier on. I know we spent hours talking about it the day it happened. Like that guy who came to us on Facebook and gave us all about, you know, they're missing the point, and they're the part of the problem. And to me, I'm not really interested in people who are part of the problem. I'm interested in people who are part of the solution.
Yeah, well, that's the whole empathetic thing is, having to say what you did, which YouTube didn't even allow it to post what you said, which was so I just ended up deleting the comment anyway because it was not intelligent in any way. That's the thing is, I said to you last night, uh, in the old chat box, I said the what was it the comment box on the internet was one of the worst inventions ever made.
Yeah.
Because you put a comment box on something, and I have no, it's so hard to read any sort of anything that has a thing on it and just not get like so frustrated and angry and just like sometimes they go off into tangents that are just it literally ends up people like just shouting at each other. I saw one the other night go into I think somebody had a comment about something and it was relevant to the article and then somebody commented back with something that was in all capital letters and then somebody commented about that saying like, hey, I think your caps button is locked. And then somebody commented on that and next thing you know it was just this big long discussion of people like calling each other faggot and caps lock button and people were posting pictures of like their caps lock button because some were saying that my caps lock button is all in caps. Somebody's like, well, mine's actually not in caps. And oh my god, it was just you're just I all I wanted to do was like read this article that was about space travel or some sort of new whatever, and then you get to the comments and this is what you get. You're just kind of like, Jesus Christ, like, all you have to do is put a comment box on something, and anyone who's anybody will just write something. What is it? NPR posted an article on Facebook, and the first comment, and of course this has like 85 likes or something, is some guy who's like, I don't know what to say here, so I'm just gonna put a recipe for blueberry pancakes, and then it was just a recipe for blueberry pancakes. And it's like, oh my god, like that's like not we're just wasting time now, and then people are commenting to it and replying, and there's so little empathy, especially in the comment box. And like that guy who posted on the YouTube, his comment was something. Oh, I think I can remember it. It was like what I think he might have said it was like good video or something like that, but then he said like what now a suicide charity is gender bias, and it had like a
Mm.
question mark, and it was like he didn't bother to look up calm,
Yep.
and see what it's about. He didn't bother to even try to put himself in the other shoes of like, well, why would somebody feel the need to make a male suicide, thing? Like, well, the only reason I can think of is if somehow, the stats were lopsided towards males, which in the UK they obviously are, which was, what was the percentage?
12 a day, my man.
And then no, the percentage of men overall wasn't it like 85%?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like 80, like the suicides per year, like 85% of it was men.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay, that's and I tried to reply back to him and I said something like what was it? It was like, do you really think a suicide charity would turn somebody down just because of their gender? Like, are you that just sort of pessimistic about the world that a woman tries to call a suicide prevention center and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't deal with women. I mean, that would just be so to me, somebody who lives like that is just insane to begin with. uh, but yeah, you see something like that and you just kind of have to assume that there are enough smart people in the world that there might be, especially like that, that, maybe somebody know what they're doing, maybe just because the comment box is in my hand, maybe I don't know everything. I wish Richard was here because yeah, he was talking about Monsanto, and I actually just got into like been on Facebook about the GMOs, and they said something about like GMOs had been in inorganic GMO had been found, and people literally people were commenting like, ooh, you mean my hipster ideals and beliefs have all just been shattered? And it was like, dude, like, are you so stupid that you don't understand the difference between an organic GMO and a corporately man-made GMO? Like, think that there could be like a little bit of a difference there, and it was guy, it was a bunch of other guys. You try to post, I try to post information and studies, and they basically berated me and said something like, "Oh, wow, you did a Google search. Like, we're so proud of you." And it's like, dude, what do you think the internet is nowadays? Like, it's not all just YouTube and comments. And
Mm.
there are scientific studies that there are some truths and things out there, and you can find these. And it's like I think Chipotle is not using these ingredients, and I think Panera is not using these ingredients, and it's like you're telling me that uh you're gonna eat something that Chipotle wouldn't serve, like it's, this is so ridiculous. Like, and countries are banning it, and it's like, do you think they're all just not stupid about everything and just being just sort of being ignorant and being like, no, we just don't want it, we don't trust it, we don't know why, we just don't trust it. Like, there has to be something to it for all these dominoes to keep falling. And then one of the things I saw when I was doing my research is that the corn and things that it was growing contained like 3 to 4 times less nutrients and minerals and vitamins that normal corn would have.
Mm.
Like, so, and then people are like, oh, we can grow vast fields of it. It's like, and we could feed the hungry people, and it's like, you can, yeah, but what are you you're just feeding them sustenance now. You're
Hmm.
feeding them nutrient, or yeah, nutrient malnourished sustenance of corn without vitamins, like, which is the whole point of eating corn. you know they're not just
Well,
they're not just gonna be like, oh, thank God we got corn, it tastes so good. It's you need the vitamins and the nutrients, so otherwise they're you're just kind of stuffing your face.
I mean, a perfect one. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before in the podcast, but I'd recommend anyone to go and watch King of Corn, the documentary. I mean, that blew my mind when I saw that there's whole fields of corn being eaten, and it's not even edible by the human. I mean, this stuff that's just there for corn syrup, just to feed into Coca-Cola and Pepsi and other generic brands of crap that we're being fed every day. And do you know what I mean? And like you say, I think that it's things like that that can. I think that I think people who are creative and are kind of generally just a bit more, I don't know, open-minded about the world, they see, and it's at that point that like I said, that's when it's the slate positive can easily turn into being negative because you think, oh God, another one, and man, don't tell me about it. Man, all you got to do is just sit and like you said, just Google and you can. It's like a wave of just shit and depression that just flies over you. You think, oh God, another one, another thing, and you know how powerless you are. But I think that's the whole point of why information is there and why we're fed certain information. I think it's there to make us sort of feel like you're worthless, you can't do anything, so just shut up, just go with the flow, don't do anything, just what's the point? And but at the end of the day, yeah, okay, the truth is none of us can save the world, but we can all save ourselves, and that is the element of that slay positive thing. It's okay, yes, the world is full of shit and depression and people doing nasty shit to each other. And yes, we have no power over but we have the power over ourselves, man. And then it's been, as I said before, it's being a very aware, which is a very it's the balance between being, like I said earlier on, being positive isn't that whole hey, let's all put a slap on slap ourselves on the back and say how great we are and put a big smile on and go around being like some sort of vacuous, happy, shiny person. That's not the positive thing. I mean, do you know what I mean? I'm quite aware of it. I suffer from depression myself. I know what it's like to feel down and depressed and low and stuff like
Who
that.
hasn't? I think anyone that can't admit it is just I don't know. I think they should be punched in the dick.
But equally, I mean, this is one of the things when I've been in those darkest moments, I've like I said before, I've taken my pen out and I've taken my pad out, and I've either written something or drawn something, and it's amazing. Afterwards, you look back and go, "Wow, that was one of my strongest pieces I ever drew." Do you know what I mean? I
Or
don't
even
think.
just for anybody, like even if you're not artistic, like build something, fix
Mm,
something,
mm.
add something to your house, is add some shelves, figure out some spacing, paint a frame, do read. Fuck yeah, man, read.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've always said to people is like you say, read a book is a great one to do, or I mean, another one that's very simple to do, and it's amazing to me how many people that I know people that kind of suffer with depression, and I say to them this very thing, and they go, "Oh yeah, but I'm not that kind of person." I say to them, "Well, get yourself on a social media network, whichever one it is. I don't care. I'm not here to promote any, but connect with somebody." Go and talk to somebody. And instead of like doing it for yourself and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this so I get flattery," put yourself in another person's shoes and connect with them, talk to them. And sometimes it's like you say, it's not only just a case of putting a shelf up; it's just talking to someone and asking them how you doing today. Putting yourself outside your own experience and trying to put yourself in someone else's experience. And at times, you'll never know. I mean, it's just one of the things that it's one of the great truths of lives. At times, and I speak for myself. Someone has said to me something, one comment. You're a perfect example. But Sai from the Demons is a perfect example. They say one little comment to me, and they probably just said it, and but it will change my whole perspective on everything. And that's what I mean. This is the power that we can all do. That's what I mean. Sometimes one of the great things is to do is like I say, just go out and connect, and then whether that's through social media or just go out to the local park, go out to the beach, wherever you are, go and talk to somebody, go and sit down to someone, have a chat with them. Take
Well,
yourself out.
go outside your comfort zone. You
Mm,
know, do what you don't normally do. So that's what I say about flipping it around and having it take you higher. Go to go to those places that you've kind of thought about doing, and you're subconsciously have been like, I've lived in this town forever, but I never go to this river. I never go here. I never walk these trails. Whatever. Like, use that sort of turn that energy around, and get a wild hair up your ass and just fucking do it.
mm, exactly. I
I
mean,
mean, it's go outside the comfort zone, and you find you do live, you do survive, and even when you're there, you'll try to make it. And like I said, it's just I keep saying it's more fulfilling to do that. Just to uh, step outside your box and think even something as simple as going to a park or something like that. Other people go to that park. Why not? Just because you never go there, you never feel the need to. Like even just go there to try and understand why people go here. And especially something like a park, usually 2 minutes into it, and it's like, okay, it's actually like the air is different in a park, like because there's like trees. Wow, I don't have those in my bedroom when I'm playing video games.
yeah. I mean, one of the great things, and I was actually just recently just talking to Sai about it because it's a perfect chimes into what you just said. Then, I mean, they, the twins and their family had a dog called Jet for many years, and it died recently. And one of the things that me and Sai were talking about was like, if more humans could be like a dog, then we live in a better world because that's an animal that will just show you love and affection. And that's one of the things that I recommend to people. Go out, and if you don't like talking to people, because I know, man, trust me, I know what it's like when you think I do not want to speak to another human being.
Fuck no.
You know what I mean?
Goddamn humans.
But you can always go out, go down and find a dog to stroke, or go down and find a cow or a pig or something. Go and connect with life other than just human beings.
Did you say go down and find a dog to stroke?
Yeah, man. Find a random dog and stroke it, man. You'll feel a lot better for it. Trust me.
I was gonna say
That's
go
all.
buy a hamster,
Yeah, go and buy. Go.
a pig, and and a ham and a coke, and you're good.
Exactly, man. I mean, like I say, man. I mean, it's. I think it's that's that's one of the reasons why particularly me and you, and we do this podcast, and we it's basically to highlight the people in this world who are doing positive things. And I know that I don't know if you want to sort of expand about it and stuff like that. But there's some really and I will. There's some really exciting projects. I know the Demons have got a new album coming out. George has got a new EP coming out. There's some really good stuff coming from bands I know all around the world and stuff like that. And I know you particularly are creating at the moment. I don't know if you want to talk about that because you're doing a lot at the moment. And this, for everyone, anyone that's listening out there, the two people that listen and stuff like that. But Ryan's a perfect example. He's going out putting his hours into the grilling meat industry, but he still has the time. I mean, you're a perfect example, right? You still have the time to go out, and even after you finish grilling meat all day for hungry people, you'll still come home and you're still doing. I mean, right now you're doing one album I know by yourself. You're doing obviously you
I'm
collaborated on the
doing
Weekend album.
a well, yeah,
Well,
basically.
tell the world, man. Tell the world.
Well, we have I've talked about it on here before, the Thumbnobulist album, which is uh I keep going back to it and putting more into it, but what you never told me your thoughts on the song I sent you. I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Man, I love it.
Castlemania.
Yeah, man, Castle. In fact, I was going to talk to you about this offline. But I've already got a few ideas in my head and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know how much you want to sort of tell people, but I was blown away last night, and I haven't really had a chance to talk to you. And I mean that quite sincerely. I was blown away by your whole concept of that because I've heard you mention it in little bits and pieces to me, but your whole concept behind that album is. I don't know. It's very, very inspiring, man. You're definitely taking a completely left field. I don't know how much you want to sort of say about this. If you do, please do. If you don't, then don't feel free not to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but yeah,
No, no, it's I mean, I love this just being creative, and you don't have to somebody who makes music, if they have an idea of, you thought this is what the song sounded like, and so they give it a name that has sort of that ring to it. And you don't have to just you're an artist. You don't have to set yourself to any rules or limits or anything. So go outside the box. So uh, yeah, one of the ideas for Thumbnobulist was it's sort of like this urban legend video game system that sort of that sort of it may or may not exist, but you will constantly hear stories of maybe a friend's neighbor had a dad who once owned the system and had a certain amount of games, and so there's all these rumors about this sort of video game system that existed but didn't exist. And I think I wrote something in the description about like it, like maybe stealing people's souls or something like that. But it was sort of like the book The Evil Dead, from The Evil Dead, where it was just sort of this mythological thing, and when people find it, they're not supposed to exist after the book, but the book still, or the video game system still exists somewhere, and occasionally it'll show up in a dark alley and find some young suspecting gamer. And uh, but then so that was like sort of the background for the album, and then the tracks were supposed to be kind of like a mashup of what the soundtrack for some of the games would be. So each track is actually a supposed to be a soundtrack for a video game. So every track is a different game for this system that does not exist. So and that was really in keeping with just the idea of like all my songs, all my new songs usually just they have so many change ups in them, and so many switches and different beats and different moods going on, that it's I kind of had to think. I don't know. It just kind of seemed like having a name for it just didn't seem like enough. Like it needed like some sort of weird story to go behind it. So I'm actually trying to get in touch, or I don't know how many. I might just have Tim draw all the instruction manuals, but but it was just a cool idea I had, where like you can give somebody more, and I can use my artistic ability and actually get other artists or just Tim's artistic opinion on sort of an instruction manual, an old school Nintendo, Atari, Super Nintendo type instruction manual of what some of the things in this game might look like. And like I said, it was just another thing to add to the COVID, and really try to the liner notes that seem to be missing from hard copies. That was one of the great things about having a hard copy vinyl, having a hard copy CD. Sometimes
Hmm.
back in the day, um, where you'd get like these big booklets and all sorts of pictures, and obviously you would get the lyrics back then. They stopped doing that for some reason, and yeah, so I just wanted to sort of add a bunch of more content and try to make it sort of this big weird thing. And I'm actually working. I think I told you I'm trying to work on a video of some sort that would involve this some popping up out of nowhere, and some kid getting addicted to it and playing one of the games, which is uh, supposed to be some sort of. I haven't written out the dial or the story for it, but it's supposed to be some sort of like flying game, some sort of like experimental spacecraft flying uh, pilot type game. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just weird.
I mean, one of the other things I kind of again, and if you don't want to talk about it, feel free. But I kind of want to. I'm hoping to get. I want to get on the podcast, sort of soonish. And it's one of the things that we never really talk about a lot. We haven't. I don't think we've ever spoken about it. But you've done a lot of work with Paul Mackey, Drunks Like Us and stuff like that. And I know that I don't know how much you want to sort of, expand about what your plans for this later this year and stuff like that are, but that's another great project you're working. And he's another person that, again, I feel that, not a lot of love, not enough light is shone upon in this world. I mean, you're the one that, t- again, tell us all about that Paul Mackey experience and how that's what plans you got going with him. Because that's again, this is the thing. I say this because you're very inspiring because you're, like I said before, you're someone who, your work, you're not just someone that sits around all day with, you're not someone who's got been born with a silver spoon in his mouth and, you're a multi-millionaire and that's why you can sit around doing these projects. You're a guy who goes out, works, and then you just, like you said, not only have you done the Weekend one, not only have you done a video for God knows how many people we've had even on this podcast, but you'll find time to, like I say, to do something that isn't much talked about, but I can't imagine how much work you put into doing the stuff with Paul Mackey, and you have been doing for a long time. So that's why I want to kind of talk about it, because it's just another outlet that you have, and I like I said, I want to get him on the podcast soon, and you know, you're the person I thought that more than anyone else who can sort of like enlighten people or point people towards what he's doing, and just expand a bit about what that whole of that project you're doing, Paul Mackey.
Oh well, he's got a yeah. I've met him. I think just through. I think it was just through Twitter. He was doing a Kickstarter for what was it? He was trying to do. I think what was it? The original Doctor Who from the '60s. What is it? Like the first three, 4, 5, 6 episodes were lost. Uh, so they don't even have like the original first 6 episodes of Doctor Who. So Paul Mackey was doing this Kickstarter to redo the originals, and I wasn't totally like I'm not into Doctor Who that much, so I wasn't all like, oh wow, they're gonna redo this, it's gonna be so cool. No, like it was actually just really him and kind of how he did his Kickstarter that drew me to him, because or drew him to me, because it was really weird, because I clicked on it, and I was kind of expecting to be this big huge like Doctor Who fanboy thing, and no, it was just this straight up Paul Mackey being like, hey, it's Paul Mackey, if you want to read the script you can read it here, um, and, which is kind of how he's done all his projects. And to me it's like the, like you can't really sell something. You can try. Well, I mean, obviously you can sell something because people do it all the time. You can sell something in a 1 minute video and a minute and a half video, but you know, Paul Mackey was like, these are you can read the scripts, and it was like, wow, okay, that's kind of weird. So I clicked on it and I started reading the script, and I asked him if I really liked the script. I thought it was pretty funny that he was going to do it, and um, I was like, "Hey, man, if I can," and I don't. He didn't even have any really a whole lot of backing going on at that time, and um, the goes on. But the thing is he's not. I've seen him raise so little amount of money on a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, and he still goes out and does it to the best of his ability. And I know with the Doctor Who one, I asked him if he had a theme for it, and that was kind of one of the things I had gotten in contact with him about. I was like, "Do you have a theme yet? Did anybody actually give you like that, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum?" And he was like, "No, no, we don't have anything like that." And I was like, "Oh man, let me make you something. Tell me what you think of it." And I made him one, and like I was even able. I actually used the original 1960s, just that bass line, the bum 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 bum. I used that part, and then I used all these different synthesizers over it, and really tried to recreate the same synth lines that they have going on in that theme, and at the same time making it my own, just because they're just trying to make it sound like me, which is obviously sort of weird and futuristic and spacey and robotic, and it's the best way I can describe my music. But so then, yeah, I made that for him, and he ended up getting, I think, letters from the BBC telling him like, "No, you can't do this." And I didn't find that out until I think like years later. And I think I gave him money for it. I think donated money to all his projects. I try to donate a lot. I try to donate money to a lot of projects and things like that. I've supported like over 60 artists on Bandcamp, and I know I just bought the new Fold single. If you look up Fold FM on Bandcamp, definitely check out the new single. It's a great song. Also on YouTube, check it out. But yeah. So then he came out with hashtag. It was called "Cunts Like Us," which was the script was awesome. But then he kind of changed the name because like Kickstarter wouldn't even like list it like on their yeah, like if you went to Kickstarter and just went to like comedies and tried to find it, you wouldn't see hashtag cunts like us. So, but you could. There was a link to it, but they wouldn't put it on their website. So he changed it to hashtag drunks like us, and I believe he finished. He actually, I saw him raise money for it. He didn't get what he wanted, which wasn't even that much, and he still had people. I believe that he met on Twitter who were able to go out and shoot the movie and do it on a extremely budget. Um, I'm not trying to burst his bubble, but he told me for next to nothing. That's how much he got the movie made for, and um, it's a great movie. And I just reached out to him and I said, let me make some music for it, and if you use it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. That's kind of have to, if you're gonna be, sort of like that, you kind of, if you offer things to people, you can't just expect them to use everything. You can't, you can't expect them to promote you as much as you think you put your work into the project. It's, um, you really just got to want to help them. And that was my whole thing with, Paul. I was never like, I want my name here. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it was just like, yeah, I made you this music. I love all of it. I think it's really great. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even sent it to you. But, if you find a place for it, use it. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. No big deal. And then he's coming out now with another, or he's trying to make another horror movie. And yeah, I asked him. He said, "No, man. You thinking about making something?" I was like, "Yeah, man. Let me see what I got." And then pretty much a whole album. And I think like less than a week. It was like I don't know, maybe 48 minutes, I think. And yeah, I kind of loved all of it. Or else, once again, I really wouldn't have sent it to him. I think it. I was like, yeah, I want to make a. To me, it's the whole sort of concept album thing where, he has the storyline, and I'm just like, oh, cool. This is what it sounds like to me when I hear it, and so I, just play. These are the sort of the tones and the moods, and I'm just kind of building my own, atmosphere of what I think's going on, and sending it to him, and it's once again, it was a whole thing of, just helping him out. Like, I didn't ask him for money.
Well, man, I can't really think of any better way to wrap up a podcast. I mean, as I said before, that is a very perfect definition of what this whole podcast has been called: slaying positive with the art of creating with empathy. I think that the best way. I mean, that's the best way to sort of like the best example of what we're talking about. Now, I wanted to finish tonight, Ryan, and I'm going to give you the choice, man. We're going to finish with a Demons tune, and I'm going to pick off one off the album Dual Sides. So I'm going to give you the honour, mate, of picking what tune we play out with tonight, man, off the Dual Sides. Is there any particular tune you want to play?
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, you're not putting me on the spot. You're just making me decide between, so many great songs.
That is true, my man.
Even if I try to boil it down to like favorites, I'm still just like, oh, but I'm picking. No, I don't. I think you got to go with someone great.
Okay, that's cool, man. Well, we're going to finish with Someone Great by the excellent, and I know I always say it, and we say it constantly on this program, but the excellent Sealing Demons. Just to give people a heads up, on Tuesday we've got Robert Kelsey, who wrote the great book again, and I'm quite happy to advertise this book, The Outside Edge. He's coming on Tuesday, which I'm really looking forward to, and anyone that's listening out there, please spread the word, because it's a great book, and I think it's one of the. It's not often I sit and promote anything on this show, but that's one book I recommend everyone to go out and read. That'll be on Tuesday. I'll give people more heads up on notice, but we're going to finish tonight with the great someone great from the fantastic Sealing Demons. So with that, I say life is people, and someone great.
Life is people.
Emotionally, I'm not that strong, baby. I'm just rusted and dented like an old tin can which passes around between yourselves. The clear selfishness, it cannot be held. As you kick, I rattle like a broken riffle. The object of waste, the unforgiven. The wind pushes the rain that's tapping behind the curtains. There's a terrible tension behind the eyes. The leaks start flowing. You cry and I cry, but there's no way of knowing. You leave the room to get some shut eye. I sit and drink and keep on asking myself, why have I done some things to turn my friends against me? Loved ones, I love you, but I'm feeling empty. I sigh with regret, what will I do next? Delirious, drunk and fixed on death. What will I do next? I'm delirious, I'm drunk to fuck, man. I've got a death wish, a death plan. Life's a lesson that we all have to take. Too bad some of us take our own graves. We are all reflections of our own traits. Fight the hate, substituted for something great. Yes, praise the brave who inspire us to lift the weight from our shoulder blades and be amazed at the lighter side of the maze as we float through space, traveling from place to place. You know, you put a smile on my face. Begin to paint the world you want to create. Try not to complain. Things cannot always go your way. Still we play the game, and the sweetness will help us to love again. The sweetness aids the bitter mistakes we make. So we'll bake a cake and share the pieces and celebrate with everyone who we appreciate, because everyone is so one great.